In this tutorial we will create a basic application using the barometric sensor that is part of all smartphones today. We will use a framework called .NET MAUI, which is a cross-platform app development framework where you use Visual Studio and C#. So basically we will create a basic .NET MAUI app that uses this barometric sensor. Here you see a draft of the application and the user interface that we're going to create. Some overview here with a title, image, and then we will read data from this barometric sensor by using two buttons, a start button to start reading from the sensor and a stop button that stops reading from the sensor, and then we will present some data from the sensor, barometric pressure, and we will also calculate the level above sea level like this. So basically basic .NET MAUI application that reads values from this barometric sensor. So before we start creating the app itself, let's start with a short introduction. So basically any type of smartphone today has lots of built-in sensors that you can use as part of your application. You have sensors like a gyroscope, accelerometer, shake sensor, magnetometer, compass, barometric sensor, which we are going to use in this tutorial. And if you know how to use one of these sensors, you can easily also apply and use the other sensors as well, because the way you program this barometric sensor is the same as you also program the other sensors that are available. Of course, we have also such elements that vibration, flashlight, camera, etc. But as mentioned in this tutorial, we will focus on the barometric sensor. And we will create a basic application using this .NET MAUI framework from Microsoft. And by using this framework, you use the Visual Studio and you use the C# programming language. You can also use Visual Studio Code because there exists an extension for this .NET MAUI framework. And in order to start using this .NET MAUI framework in Visual Studio, you need to make sure that you have installed this .NET MAUI workload as part of the installation. If you haven't installed it, basically search for the Visual Studio installer in the Windows search menu, and then just make sure that you install this workload in order to start using this .NET MAUI framework. When you have installed this framework and then you create a new project in Visual Studio, you should have this .NET MAUI app project available. If you don't find it, just search for .NET MAUI here in the search field in order to get access to this .NET MAUI app template. So next, let's see how we can use this barometric sensor in your smartphone. So the barometric sensor measures the ambient air pressure. The data from the sensor is in hectopascals, shortened HPA or hectopascal. You can also, in addition to just read the value from the sensor, which is the ambient air pressure, you can also use the barometric formula to calculate the height above the sea level. As you see here in this basic example, this is the raw value from the sensor, but you can also use this barometric formula to calculate the height above sea level, like this. So here you see this barometric formula that we will use as part of the application in order to calculate this meters above sea level. Basically, we just use this simple formula where P0 is the standard atmospheric pressure at sea level, which is basically 1013.25 hectopascal. So basically in your application, just implement this formula, and then you are also able to calculate the height above sea level. So this barometric sensor can be used in many different types of applications. Typically high barometric pressure indicates stable and clear weather, while low barometric pressure often signals bad weather, such as storms or rain, etc. And this sensor can be used in many different types of apps or applications. You can create weather and environment apps. You can do some local pressure measurement, storm alert, elevation and outdoor apps, height measurement, fitness and sport applications, hiking application, training analysis, ski, snowboard, skydiving, etc. So let's start creating the app itself. I will just call it Mountain App. And here you see the draft of the user interface that we will end up with. So you should be able to read the value from the sensor by using this button, start reading from sensor and stop reading from sensor. You can also use this barometric formula to calculate the height above sea level as well. And also, of course, you should test your application on your real Android device, but during programming and testing, you can also use this Android emulator. And then this Android emulator has also what you call extended controls, and here you can simulate values that should be present for this type of sensor like this. So here you can use this slider to change the pressure value, and then you should see an updated value here in your application as well. So now I have opened my Visual Studio. So basically I just select create a new project. I select this .NET MAUI App project. If you don't find it, just search for it here. Then click next, and then you need to specify a name for your application. In my case, I just call it Mountain App or something, and then I specify a location where I want to save my project and click next. So here I select the latest framework, and if one of these are selected, I just make sure that those are selected and click create in order to create the project in Visual Studio. Typically this will take some seconds. So part of this default .NET MAUI template, it's created a default application. So let's just run it. Here you can select the target that you want to use. So here we want to use the Android emulator. And here you have different emulators for different Arduino devices. I just select the default one, click the red button in order to start the application. Typically it takes some seconds to build the application and get it up and running. Also allow USB debugging. You can click allow, and you just need to wait some seconds in order to make the application ready. So here you see the default application that comes with this template. So you can use this application as a starting point for our own Mountain App application, where we are going to use this barometric sensor. Basically, it's a simple user interface with an image, some text, and a button which you can click on like this. And then the output of the application are seen in this Android emulator. So let's just stop this application and start creating our own Mountain App application. So we should make this application step by step. So we take one step at a time, and then let's start with this basic layout where you have two buttons, start button, stop button. So the start button should start reading values from the sensor, and the stop button, when you click here, you should stop reading values from the sensor. We have a title here, just saying barometric sensor or something, and then here barometric pressure. When you click start here, then we should read values from the sensor and present the value here in this label. So basically this user interface consists of two buttons and a label here and a label here. And here you see how this user interface should be created in .NET MAUI. So we use something called XAML in order to create the graphical user interface. So here this barometric sensor is basically just a label which is shown here, and with a text, barometric sensor, style, etc. And this one, barometric pressure, is this label with a name, text that should be presented, etc. And here later we should change the text to the actual value from the sensor. And then we have the start button, which is shown here with a name, start button, text that should be presented on the button, start, and the same for the stop button, and the text, stop. And also when you click either on the start button or the stop button, an event handler should occur, and then you specify the name of the event handler here, clicked, and on start clicked, and then for the stop button, clicked, on stop clicked. So these, when you click on this button, you should go to the event handler that you need to create in your code, and then when you click on the start button, you should start read from the sensor, and when you click on the stop button, you should stop the reading from the sensor. So let's go back to Visual Studio and create this graphical user interface. So in this default template, we have this main page.xaml, which is the main page we are going to create our graphical user interface, and then we have the so-called code behind file, main page.xaml.cs, which is the C# code file. So let's start by opening this one. Just remove this one. And then here you see the basic user interface for the Hello World application. We can use it as a starting point to delete what we don't need and add the extra parts that we need as part of our graphical user interface. And let's also open this main page.xaml.cs file, which you have here. Basically, it's a main page. This is the startup part of the application, and then it calls the initial component. In addition, when you click on this button here, you are executed this on counter clicked handler, which you find here, but we don't need to use that one now in our new application, so I just delete it. And also delete this variable on top here. So now we have just a clean C# code that we will create later, but let's start with the graphical user interface. Here's an image. Let's just start by just delete that one. And then we have two labels and a button. And then here, this is the label, which has a heading level 1, so this should be the title. And then here we can change it from Hello World to something like this, Barometric Sensor or something. Here we should present the value from the sensor, and then we can change the text here. To something like this, and then we have the button. We need two buttons, so we need one start button. So the X column name is the name of the button, so then we can call it start button like this, and the text that should be presented on the button, just start in this case. Here we have some semantic properties .hint. You can just change it to click start button to start reading data from the sensor or something. And then when you click on the button, you should go to this event handler. Let's change it to on start clicked or something. So now we have this start button, and you can just make a copy of this one or the stop button as well. Now you can just do like this, and then instead of start button, we just change it to stop button, and the text should be stop, click stop button to stop reading data from the sensor or something. On start click, on stop clicked, which is the event handler for this button. And as you see, the buttons, these two buttons has a name, so we should also have some names for the labels. So I can just copy this one. We don't need a name for this one, but we can have, you can call it app title or something. And this one, it should be the readings from the sensor. We can call it label pressure or something. And like this. So basically now we have created a first draft of our graphical user interface. So let's just save it and then just click here in order to run the application, and let's see how the user interface looks like when we run the application. So here you see the results of this layout or user interface that we created in this main page.xaml. So here you see this barometric sensor, which is this one. Barometric pressure is this one. And then when you, in the next part now, are going to read from the sensor, we are going to change this text to the actual value from the sensor. And then we have these two buttons, the start button and stop button. You can try to click on these buttons, but so far nothing happens. Let's start creating some code for what should happen when we click on the start button and the stop button. So then I just stop the application, and now I go to this main page.xaml, and let's create an event handler for these two buttons, which should now be presented here in the main page.xaml.cs file. So far, of course, we can create these event handlers manually, but it's easier to just go to this this button and click here. So just right click on this button and go to definition, and then the code will be created for us. Yeah, so basically you just need to click on the event handler on start click. So just right click on this one, go to definition, and then this event handler will be created automatically for us in the main page.xaml.cs file. Let's do the same for the stop button. We click on stop clicked event, right click, go to definition, and also this event handler will be created for us. So now we have this main page, and then we have these two event handlers. So let's start the code for start reading from the sensor and stop reading from the sensor. So let's start with this on start click. So then we just use the built-in functionality for using these barometric sensors, and then you just type barometer, select this one, click dot, select default, and we need to define, because when the reading from the sensor is changing, we want to go to a new event handler, like this. So then basically we create a new event handler here. You can specify the name, whatever you like. You can call it on barometer reading change like this. And then basically you just need to create that event handler here in the same code file, like this. So just delete the default code. So now we have one event handler for the start button and one for the stop button, and one when the reading from the sensor the value is changing, then this piece of code will be executed. So this line of code just define the event handler. Now we need to start the sensor as well, like this. And then barometer.default.start, like this, starts the actual reading from the sensor. Basically that's it. We could also improve it. We have these two buttons. So now when you click on the start button, typically you want to disable this start button. So then you can use the start button like this is enabled and set it to false, and then you cannot start the sensor twice. And then you can do the same for the stop button, and then the stop button is enabled, is set to true, like this. So that's the on start clicked event handler. Let's do the same for this on stop clicked event handler. So the first thing we need to do here is to stop the reading from the sensor. So I'll just use this default code like this. So then I start by stopping the sensor, and then we don't need to read data from the sensor anymore. So then I just use this line of code in order to remove this event handler which is created here, because you don't need to have an event handler that check if the data is changed when the sensor is not running like this. And now start button should be true and the stop button should be false, like this. So now we have created functionality for the start button and the stop button. And now when we click on the start button, we should start reading values from the sensor. And when the values from the sensor is changing, it should go into this event handler, which is created here. So then basically here we should just read values from the sensor. Then you can just start by creating a variable or something, double hectopascal equals to E, which is an input to this event handler, E.reading.pressure in hectopascal. So basically this variable will store the value in hectopascal. And now we need to present it on the screen in this label here, which is called label pressure. And then basically you just use label pressure dot text like this equals to hectopascal, which is this variable. We convert it to a string like this, with one decimal like this. And then we also present the unit here at the end. So this is the actual value which is stored in this variable. We convert it to a string since it should be presented here in this label, and this label can only handle strings. Just this one, I don't need it anymore. And then we also at the end, after the value, we present the unit as well. So basically this is the basic application. So this is the first draft of the user interface with two labels and two buttons, and then we have the code for starting the reading from the sensor and stop reading from the sensor, and then the actual reading from the sensor that we put into this label here. So let's just run the application and see what's happening. So this is the user interface, and now hopefully when you click on the start button, you see we are able to read value from the sensor, and when you click stop here, we stop the reading from the sensor. Of course, you can improve the user interface, etc., but this is at least a starting point. You can start, stop reading from the sensor, and then let's open these three dots to open these extended controls for the Android emulator. Let's go to virtual sensors. Then we have the pressure sensor here. So now we can change this value, and you see the value is changing here on our user interface on our application like this. So the value is changing. When I click stop here, you see the value is no longer changed, because we are not now reading values from the sensor. But when I click start, you see the value is updated here. So basically this is a basic application created with .NET MAUI in Visual Studio and in C#, where we read data from this barometric sensor, which is included in all types of smartphones either it's Android phones or iPhones. So next, let's see how we can also include this height above sea level by using this barometric formula. So then I just stop it, and then we can add a label for that. Here is label for the sensor value. I can just create another label. Like this, and then label something like this. Text here should be like this. So this of course should be changed from the value that we are calculating using this barometric formula. So we have one label here for the value from the sensor, and then this calculated value based on this barometric formula. So now we basically just need to go to the C# code. We can start by creating a new function. We can call it parrot double. It should return a value. We can call it calculate height or something, and it should have an input value double pressure or something. Like this, and then we can implement this barometric formula. Use the default code here, like this, and then it will return this height, and then we can use it here in this event handler that where we are reading from the sensor. So basically we can just use label height is like this. Then in order to present the height above sea level here, we just execute this formula which we have created here, and the input is the value from the sensor in hectopascal. So that's the input to this method or function, and the return value is the height above sea level, which will then be presented here in this label, and the unit here is in meters, like this. So basically just click save, and then we'll just run the application, and let's see the final result for our application. So now the user interface looks like this. Here is the title, here is the barometric pressure and the height, and then let's just start, and then you see we have the barometric pressure in hectopascal, and then this level or height above sea level in meters, like this. We can go to the extended controls, change the value here, and then you see both the barometric pressure value changes according to this simulation, and the height above sea level, like this. So that's a basic application created with the .NET MAUI, and we are using Visual Studio and C#, and also we are able to read the values from one of the built-in sensors that is part of most of the smartphones today, which is this barometric sensor. So now you are on your own. You can change the user interface, improve the application, add more functionality, etc. There's one more thing I want to show you, how you can add an image here to improve the layout or user interface of your application. So then I just start by just stopping it. I have already an image which I just found on the internet. It's called mountain, and then here under resources we have a folder called images. So then I basically just drag this file into this images folder, like this, and then this image looks like this. If I just double click on it, it's just an image of a mountain like this. Now I want to include this one in the user interface. Let's say we want to have it below this title, so then I can just add an image here. I just type image like this. And then I just use these default values, and then the name, it could be anything, but the source should be this image, mountain .png, like this. And now let's just start application, and let's see these final results. Take some time to build and create the application itself, but after a few seconds we end up with this application. So we have this title barometric sensor, which is here. We have this image of a mountain, which is created here, and we have this label for values from the barometric sensor and the calculated height above sea level, and then we have these two buttons for start reading values from the sensor and stop reading values from the sensor, like this. So we ended up with an application like this, where we created a .NET MAUI application using this barometric sensor. We created two buttons to stop reading from the sensor and present the data here. We're also using the barometric formula to calculate the height above sea level. We also added an image like this. Now it's up to you to improve this application. You can, lots of things that can be improved. Of course, you can improve the code quality a lot. Instead of start-stop button, you can have a slider. Instead of the start-stop button, you can add more images. You can include values from more sensors, like the compass sensor. You can do some general formatting, layout, changing some colors, etc. And you can also make an app icon and make your application ready for distribution by creating an APK distribution file, etc. So that's all. So thank you and goodbye.